Hey everyone, it's Arkheim. I'm here with Alandra Markman. Brian's not here with us today. He's a dad now. He's got a little daughter that just was birthed to the world today, so obviously he's got a lot going on, so he's not here with us. And just this time of he's gonna be busy because of the whole being a dad thing. So until he's got that all figured out, the work-life balance and all that stuff, we've seen a little bit less of him, but he's still around. So welcome everybody. Today I have Alandra Markman. Alandra is a healer, musician, poet. Served with him at Montauk under Project Phoenix 2, and we've been through a lot together. We've experienced a lot of stuff together. It was actually really intense meeting him on the Montauk tour because it was just like, oh wow, I've known you really well, better than a lot of people that are in my life because we spent so much like lifetimes together and stuff. So yeah, welcome to the show. If you want to give maybe a little more detailed introduction of yourself to the audience to help them understand who you are, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, thank you, Arkheim. Well, I had a double dose Montauk experience because I was part of the first iteration of it, and then in a different body, and then in this body, I was part of the second iteration, which is where Arkheim and I crossed paths. Yeah, the only thing really to say off the bat is that I work with other survivors of this kind of stuff, and it's been bringing me a lot of joy to help other people like you and me find their integration, integrate their alters, integrate their timeline experiences, and just, emerge as the badasses that we truly are. So yeah, that's kind of my main like shtick at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a pretty overwhelming journey for me, but I think I'm getting past all the shitty stuff and towards the remembering the badass who I am part. So that's good. But yeah, it's been a lot lately, especially with the songs, because I've just been realizing that I gaslight myself on it and how to the extent of it and how many songs I actually wrote, and it's absolutely fucking mind-boggling and insane. And I know that sometimes I feel like if I talk about it, people are gonna think I'm nuts, like I'm lying, but like I do know, like because of the emotions behind it and everything else and certain things. But yeah, it's a lot trying to integrate these like experience into your day-to-day everyday life of like Montauk and what we experience, but also not only just like that there's more than just that aspect of it that we have to integrate in our lives. There's also the alternate reality aspect of it, and the fact that there are timelines that we've been to, realities that we experienced that I don't know if we'll ever be able to go back to them, and it's a really strange feeling. And I've talked about it a little bit on the show, but if you could maybe give an example of a mission that you remember that we or you went on, where you went to an alternate reality and why. Maybe that would be a good start as to helping people understand alternate realities, as maybe giving an example of something that you did during Montauk where you were sent to an alternate reality.
Yeah, sure. Well, an easy example would be we were sent to Eastern Europe a lot. And what came to mind when you asked the question was a mission in Bulgaria. And something that helped me realize it was on an alternate timeline was that it was in the mid 90s, but they were still communists. Like the Soviet Union had not collapsed. So like I have a memory of that. Like we went there together, but on this timeline at that time, it wouldn't be Soviet anymore, yeah. So that's an example. Just a simple, obvious example of a timeline change.
Do you know why they sent you to Budapest or what the mission was about?
Yeah, well, there were several different ones. Hungary, yeah, and some of them were part of the Soviet bloc, and some of them weren't. Just for clarity, but generally speaking, well, a lot of them were blackmail or assassination missions. So we'd find someone of importance to the cult, like to the satanic cult, to the Draco. Often often someone who was connected to Christ consciousness, sometimes a physical relative of Christ, or someone who is holding that kind of higher awareness in their life, and either assassinate them or try to coerce them into joining the bad guys, essentially. So that's somewhat
Do you remember the Asylum nightclub?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked about it before, and it's in my book, about the Budapest mission that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
My memories aren't detailed enough to remember the fact that it was still Soviet, but what I remember is 70s like couches and styles and fashions. But I'm guessing that if it's an alternate reality, the 90s could still kind of have that going on. So yeah, things can be just different in such strange ways in different realities, and people are experiencing it. I mean, like half the planet remembers that Shazam movie that never came out in this reality, but it did in another reality. You know what I'm talking about? With
I do. Yeah.
Yep, yeah. So it's like a lot of people are experiencing this and are genuinely confused. The most recent one that I found that was a change that kind of blew my mind, and I'm kind of curious on this one. What you remember is um, it's now. Are you pondering what I'm pondering, Pinky? And Pinky in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
In my reality, it was, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And that like
Mm.
really bothered me. I was like, what? Are you pondering what I'm? No, it's, are you thinking what I'm thinking? So that's just weird little things like that. And I think that this would. I just feel like this was a good topic to do. Talk about the alternate realities to help people kind of understand like really what they are and how they interact with our reality, and then in tying in the time loops to it, that kind of helps explain how we can have memories of these other realities even though they don't exist anymore. It's because the way everything changes after you after you alter something, it sorry, I'm having a brain fart.
Yeah.
It After you change something, when the reality changes, a lot of the times what they'll do. Okay, yeah, now I know where I'm getting at. Sorry for my poor brain. We would try to change. I'm being messed with right now. I know I am. We would put time loops in place. So that's what I wanted to explain now. Is we would put loops in time to where, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying this literally happened, but let's just say 1888 and then 2011 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And between those two periods of times, we want all these things that have to happen to where in the year 2011, it ushers in this new age or something. But we're having trouble doing that. So what we might do is we would make a time loop to where, and it's hard to explain it. That's why I kind of wanted to have you on the show, is because maybe you could help me understand something,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it would loop back. Like, so it'll, and I've experienced this. Like, I went to Mount St. Anne's recently, and I don't know how or what caught me in a time loop, but I was caught in a time loop, and it was like, it took me like 18 times of trying to leave the mountain to actually be able to leave it. Because they had me in a time loop. Yeah.
Well, I can start by saying that time is kind of like a fabric, a literal fabric, and it can be moved in a lot of different ways. It can loop on itself, and I just want to say this is a natural thing. It's not something that somebody made up. Although there are manipulations of it, there are positive and negative manipulations of time for all kinds of reasons. So just want to like start there, that this is a normal thing, and time is a very malleable substance. It's something that all of us have the power to change in one way or another. Yeah. But what I think you're getting at more specifically is some of the negative time loops that we got stuck in.
Yeah.
And yeah, these are a very intense challenge, because it really makes you feel like you're crazy, and you're not sure if it's just in your experience or if it's actually external to you. And oftentimes that's part of the manipulation. Sometimes this will be done just to make you feel like you're crazy, really for that reason. So I've definitely experienced that a bunch of times. And there are other layers of deception on top of that, that I guess to keep it simple, I'll just leave those out at the moment. But yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, do you want to talk more about leaving Mount Adams?
I mean, I just had some. Yeah, sure, I can talk about it a little bit. I went there to try to go camping, and I basically had an experience where I was remembering being there during Project Phoenix, and I remembered that there were ant people there, and I was there to kill them all. And I could feel the energy of their ancestors there and their spirits there, and they were offended by the fact that I was there. And things started getting really weird, and they started trying to put us in this like weird fairy program. And me and Kat could both see that it was a program. It was like they're sucking us into like a different reality or something. We knew how dangerous it was. We don't remember it on a conscious level, but we both experienced it in the programs. And so we packed up our things and to get the heck out of there. And and that was when we got caught in the time loop, was trying to leave the mountain. And because it just seemed like, and the only way to explain it is like, it was about a couple hours to get home. I don't even think that long, maybe a little more late, maybe a little less, but it felt like an eternity. Like it felt like it just took like forever. And like, I do know it was because we were looping. It was a really interesting kind of mystical experience. And I think the most pleasurable part about it was like when I got home, I realized how blessed I am to live in a city and live surrounded by people that care about me and know who I am. And like, it just made me realize like, yeah, like I made the right choice. Like some people like living in the middle of nowhere, and I understand that, but I actually really like living in the city. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, that was basically it. I don't know what was going on. It was probably the fairies or whatever it was trying to get me back to the camping spot. Like I don't exactly know, but I think that was it. Is they tried to change it to make it so we didn't leave, but we left. We knew what was going on. There wasn't any version of us that they were able to trick. Like as soon as we saw there was like parts of the trees that were going like this, and like you could tell it's because portals were forming, and like you could see that everything would just look like a Disney movie. Like it was really weird, and we're just like, oh man, we got to get out of here. So yeah, that was the last loop that I got stuck in, and it very much so felt like some sort of strange form of black magic.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think was going on there.
I'm just hearing, I'm being present with you. Yeah, there are a couple of threads to go on. One is those ant people are very real, and they're very ancient. And for the most part, they're highly benevolent. And we were sent against them on several different iterations of Montauk stuff. So can definitely relate to that. And I also have some healing work to do, with their tribe and their group consciousness.
I mean, I fought against them. I'm good at it. I'm good at killing them, and I'm ashamed of that. I fought against them on Earth, and I fought against them on Mars. I genocided them. I killed so many of them. I remember one of them being on top of me on Mars, and it was going to kill me, but it was on top of me, and it was holding me, and it just was looking at me in my eyes, and it was saying to me, "Why are you doing this?
Yeah,
we've been here for thousands of years. Where'd you come from?
Yeah,
why'd you have to come here? Like this is our home." Like the thing was literally like, what is it inside you that makes you so psychotic? Like it was literally like, what the fuck's wrong with you? It was all telepathic, but that was it. It was like, and it just showed me like, we've been here for thousands of years. Everything was great. We had a good society, and then you guys just come along and say, "Hey, the place looks nice. I think it's ours now." Like, yeah, it was. I remember that, the emotion behind it, and I remember that we would just bomb their nests. we would just bomb them and just indiscriminately kill them all, and then we would go in there and we would clean it up, and then make it a base. And we did that to human installations and stuff like that too on Mars.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a big part of the reason why they don't tell us about Mars, is because everything's corporations. People don't realize that, and people would be mad, and people there literally would have been, if they were open about the things that Earth corporations were doing on Mars, there would have been riots on Earth. There would have been people freaking out over it, and that's why they keep it secret. Don't tell us about it. It's because all this stuff, we would be upset. We would be up in arms over it, and we would do something about it. I want to answer this question real quickly.
Yeah.
Is an alternate reality the same as a separate timeline? Yeah, I would say so. What would your answer to that question be?
Well, it's all about context. Usually when people say alternate reality, it means, a reality completely separated from this one. And we all have these alternate versions. Again, this is a natural phenomenon, that people change it both positively and negatively. When you say alternate reality, usually that means something that's completely disconnected from your current life. You might have some perception of it. You might go there in a dream or something, but it's not exactly a separate timeline for me. If I'm understanding the question correctly, separate timelines are usually much closer together than alternate realities. And separate timelines, the distinctions between them are often more subtle than they are in a totally alternate reality. And also timelines kind of bunch together more, and they're usually, you encounter them in clusters.
Do you remember when? I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you remember at Montauk when Preston would send us on missions, and then we would come back, and he would be screaming at us about how we're now in like 12 different timelines instead of just 3 or whatever it was? Do you remember that? How
Yes,
he'd be like, ah, and we'd be like, dude, we did exactly word for word what you told us. What the fuck are you screaming at us for? It's your fault. All we did was follow your orders. You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
And then we'd have to try to figure out how to merge them in order to fucking calm them down.
Yeah, and then we'd usually wind up splitting them further. Yeah.
Yeah. What a mess.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, those timelines that we kind of stepped into started to perceive, and even start, our actions bifurcated them further and made more of them. Those are all very, very closely related realities. So it's kind of for me, it's a separate thing. Yeah. And I'm really pleased that you're saying that, because I hadn't thought about that experience like probably ever since it happened.
Yeah. I have a lot of really, Preston was like a monster and a really evil person, but I have a lot of really funny memories of that guy. Like, he's kind of a clown. Like, when he'd be all pissed off, he'd be like, I'm freaked out. Like, I don't know, dude. It's just, at the time, it was terrifying, kind of, I guess. But now I look back and it's kind of funny. Like, like, he just, I don't know. He was such a fucking crazy guy. Like, he really was.
Yeah.
But which, by the way, he showed up to one of my live streams a few live streams ago.
Oh.
Yeah, it was him. Then the second time, I'm not sure if it was him or not, but it's the same people fucking with me. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's still out there. And he told me that I'll be seeing him soon, which I think I actually have, but I don't remember it. Yeah. My thumb. The night after that happened, I woke up and my thumb was numb, and the tendon that goes all the way up to my arm. There's something weird happened with my hand and my arm. I don't know what happened. And I vaguely remember Preston and then Joseph Powell's altar Pindar. And so I think I did see the fucking guy, but I don't, how it is with stolen time, where it's in the memory altering, it can be kind of confusing. So I don't, that's all I can really say about it so far. But it seems to me like whatever it is with this Preston impersonator, or him, or both, or whatever it is, that they're coming forward because we are doing a lot of good things, and we are really successful. We are creating a lot of success, and he's trying to aggravate me, and get me knocked off balance. I think is why he showed up. And then what's the bigger picture? Who did Preston work for is one of the questions, and I would say Satanists, dark black magic himself, gaining power. They worship power and control. These Satanists do. So who did Preston work for? He worked for himself. He everything he got to do was a perk of the job for him. If there was somebody he was taking orders from, that's true, but I mean there was a bigger picture. It was the Air Force, and then it was Satanists, and it was. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we've both spoken about it other places, but yeah, the Satanists, the Draco Reptilians, the Negative Greys, the Zeta Reticulans, and the CIA, Air Force Intelligence, IBM Rand, different corporations. There were quite a few players in the picture, but essentially they all share this negative religious thing. They're basically all Satanists. Yeah.
Yeah, they worship darkness and evil, and the power that it brings them. And then, did the timelines ever get repaired by ETs? You can talk about this a little bit. Yeah, the Mantis people would show up and tell us, "No, you can't fucking do this." Sometimes, and others as well. They'd be like, "No," and we wouldn't be able to do. They'd be way more powerful than us, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. This would happen sometimes, and that was a big thing. Like when people ask, "Well, were there ET there?" Yeah, there are actually positive ET groups that would go there. And their whole thing is consent, sovereignty, so they had to let us do it. But some of the ET groups, they signed a contract saying, we're going to allow you to do this, but we can just show up whenever. And you can't be mad that we show up. We don't have to announce it ahead of time. We can go anywhere we want and look at anything we want, and you can't tell us no. And if you allow that, then we'll let you do it. So that was true. They would actually show up. And they did not like what they were seeing. They did not like their kids being tortured, yada, yada, yada. But their whole thing was, are you affecting our timeline of our world and our people? Oh, you're not? Okay, good. That was the main thing. Technically we were allowed to steer our own fate and our own destiny as far as they were concerned. So that's why they didn't. And then, here's a good comment. That's a pretty trippy turtle. I think
isn't it cool?
I think I need a turtle. And then, okay, wasn't Preston at MK'd? Well, kind of. It was actually, we called him Nicholas. Right? Am I right about that?
He had a couple different names. Nicholas. And then for a while he was on like this, he had me call him Sodom. Like he was on this, like, I don't know, pseudo-Christian thing. He had a bunch of different names, but I got Nicholas too. Yeah.
And then as far as him being mind controlled, he was, but also he was a programmer and he was able to go home and he was aware of what was going on. And then when he left the project, he continued like using the technology to abuse people. So like, I don't give him a pass like I give a lot of other people a pass.
Yeah. Those mantid beings, I have a lot of respect for. We had run into them quite often. I experienced them mostly as 5th and 6th dimensional. So they're at the upper end of what we're able to perceive in that context. And some of them had come from the Orion system. Some of them were Ontarian mantid. Some of them from other systems. The mantid is just kind of a universal form like the human form. But especially the timekeepers, a lot of them are Ontarian or Orion beings, and they really I mean, I had my own like personal experiences, really deep experiences with them, even while I was enslaved. Like my consciousness would go off with them while my body was brought back, sort of thing. So
Interesting. One thing, another question here: was Marduk the head honcho? No. Marduk had his own time travel project that they had to give concessions to and pay. Marduk made them pay. So Marduk had his own time travel project, like the Montauk Project, and he made the Montauk Project pay him in order to not shut them down, and he had the power to do it. And I don't know if you remember him just like fucking with us and just like portaling in over and over and over again and giving us an order until we finally listened to him. But he did stuff like that. He would literally show up to Montauk and make us do stuff occasionally. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I have vague memories of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was way more close to him than you because he hated me.
Yeah, it seems very personal with you. I never had that kind of relationship with him, so yeah.
It was because I was his friend, and then we had a falling out, and he took it really, really personally, and he wanted to humiliate me and make an example of me because of it.
Mm,
Hey, Jessica, it's good to see you.
mm,
Um,
mm.
but yeah, um, do you think that we might be in time loops right now?
There are portions of our reality that are definitely looping, for sure. Um, I do feel an overall sense of progress. Again, there's a tremendous amount of intervention, both positive and negative. And as someone was asking or implying, the positive ETs do a lot of repair work, a tremendous amount of repair work. And they have a lot more resources than the negative beings, ultimately. So often the negative parties will believe that they're creating something, that's exactly what their intention is, but it's actually been kind of co-opted and um, taken over by the positive beings, and it will have all these unintended positive outcomes. um, there's a there's a tremendous amount of, yeah, just trickery on on all sides. But I think right now, we're more or less progressing. um, there are aspects of our consciousness and individual people who are definitely stuck in loops, and and this is different from just like speaking metaphorically or emotionally, like, oh, this person is stuck in a rut, or this segment of society is stuck in a rut and they're spinning their wheels. Like, obviously that metaphor is sort of more global, as in meaning, but um, I mean, time loops specifically are actually very hard to sustain. They tend to unravel naturally, because time has a natural flow to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes like really, really intense um, energy, technology, focus, sometimes ritual and magic, to sustain those time loops and to keep them going, because the slightest lapse in focus and they just kind of revert into being, a normal time flow. Yeah.
And another thing, just a couple questions here I'm going to bring up. Was Preston on the AI leash? So there was an AI being that was working with the Air Force, and so I would say there was a little bit of both. They were working with each other. The AI was giving the Montauk Project things in exchange for, and giving them what they want in exchange for what it wanted, and vice versa, and kind of using the Montauk Project as a means as like legs to walk. But it technically wasn't the overseer. It technically wasn't the one calling the shots, but also it was the one that it spit out probabilities at us, told us how likely missions would succeed, stuff like that. And a lot of the things that we did was its idea, but I think it was always a group consensus thing. Does that sound about right to you, Alandra?
That sounds right to me. Mm-hmm.
And then another question was like, what was Marduk like? And I remember him. I know that I guess he's not an alligator person, but I remember him as an alligator person, much like Sobek.
Mm.
That's what I remember him as. But I know that he had the capability to be in different bodies and exist as different peoples, depending on who he interacted with. Was how he would influence how he would decide to appear to people.
Mm.
So I don't. I heard from my co-host for New Earth Light Brigade that he's like not an alligator person at all. I forget what it is, but like he's more humanoid than alligator person, I guess. But he not very many people have actually seen his true form. So that's the whole thing with him. Yeah, he's the ruler of the earth, but that's being uh, passed over now. He was convicted for a lot of crimes in a galactic court, and that's all changing right now. All right, but anyway, so Beck, thank you for all your questions, by the way, everybody. That's really fascinating questions. Yeah, this is another one. What do you think of CERN and what they're doing over there, Alandra?
Yeah, well, it's obviously very tied in with the current and future iterations of Project Phoenix. So um, there's usually a particle accelerator associated with the technology used with the trip chair at Montauk, and then with the iterations of it that they've developed since then. When the Montauk, New York site went offline, or at least mostly offline on the surface levels, a lot of that stuff moved to other locations, and a big one was Switzerland and the areas around CERN. I mean, any place on Earth you have a particle accelerator, basically you're going to have some version of the Montauk Project nearby, as far as I know. So yeah, and a lot of what we went through, people are going through now in Western Europe. Yeah.
Ishmael Perez said he's dead. I'm hearing a lot of different things from other people. I would say that regardless of whether he's dead or alive, he's definitely lost his power. I think he might technically still own the Earth, but it's being passed on. And I know that me and my people, I don't know about, I think you might remember this too, Alandra, we're trying to establish a government of a new Earth, and we're saying no and we're explaining to governmental bodies that the consent that has been used to enslave humanity has been false, fabricated consent, and it's not actually legal under the court of law. And so that's a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, is trying to get galactic entities and bodies that can do something to help us, to actually get them off their asses and help us and agree with us that, and I'm sorry to be so crude about it, but it's true. It's not, we're trying to get them to actually feel the need, like we should help these people, or we should let them break free from their controllers. So I think that's a lot of what's going on behind the scenes right now. However, for me, my main thing that I try to remind people is we manifest the higher timeline, all of us collectively. We decide what timeline we're stepping into. Our minds are like radio receivers, and where you place that receiver is what universe you're going to end up in. So we need to understand that we're powerful manifestors, and that we are consciously manifesting the reality that we want to be in. So things in that regard, things can and will get better, but we do also need to understand that, for me, my problem is there's a lot of people in this community that have messaging where it's like, hey, things are going to get great, the light's winning, da-da-da-da-da, so don't worry about it, just sit back and relax, watch the show, maybe grab some popcorn or something. And that's not really how it is. We all have deep spiritual work we have to do. We have to face our shadow selves. We have a lot of boots on the ground work that we have to do to transform the world. We all play a part of it. We're all an important part of it. So I always try to give the message of hey, good things are coming, but also sometimes bad things need to happen in order for good things to happen, and there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations. So just remember that as we go through these next decades, that it's not going to just magically turn into a beautiful paradise Earth, but at the same time, we can make things better if we believe it and allow it to happen. Any thoughts on that? I think that was just a little rant that I went on, but I feel like felt like it was relevant.
Encouragement is always good. Actually, even just a little bit of conscious attention really goes a long way to dissolving negative time loops. I mean, even if just the people listening to this show, now or in the future, just took a little time in meditation, gave a little bit of your personal attention to dissolving those time loops, it would go a very, very long way. Because again, they want to unravel. They're designed to be flowing. They're not designed to be looping on themselves. The creator designed time to have a certain rhythm to it, which of course we know as musicians. Just so if people tuning in send a little bit of their intention that way, it really helps. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a big group to have a big impact. So just want to say that.
One of the questions in the audience from Venko Wachowski is, are there any positive time corporations? And I think we mentioned some of them, the Mantids. I would say that they're more of a positive group.
Yeah.
And I actually have an altar that works for them, by the way.
Yeah.
Or the Mantids. His name's Jonah. And the reason why is because sometimes when humans are doing something that they're not supposed to do and they need to be told, hey, don't do that, it's going to fuck up the timeline. it's not the best thing to send a 14-foot tall mantis person.
Mm.
Sometimes it's best to send a person that looks like them, right? So that's kind of my job, is to show up and be like, hey guys, this is actually going to majorly fuck up the time stream. And sometimes I literally have to stop them by force because they're evil and they're not going to listen to common sense.
Yeah.
But that's I actually have a job working for them. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. And one of the things that's interesting about that too, I should bring it up. I remembered that because they took me about 2 years ago, and it was when I first started going public, and I kind of have one that's like assigned to me. He's my friend, and he showed me. His name's Steve. I call him Steve, which is funny because they speak in like hisses and clicks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was like, "Hey, what should I call you?" He's like, "Just call me Steve." and I know other people who have mantis friends, and it's the same thing. They call him like George or Tom or something. So it's kind of a funny thing with them. Yeah. But it makes sense too, because you don't want to just call them a normal name. They're your friend. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Just use a normal Earth name. But anyway, he brought me to this holodeck room, and he was showing me. He's basically like, "Hey, all your altars have like a huge weight on the timeline, as you know, and your cover altar on Earth wasn't really doing anything or really affecting the timeline that much. And well, that changed a lot really fast." and he was just showing me like all this stuff, like literally physically, like I was in it. Like it was crazy. Like he was showing events, and he was just like, "Yeah, this all happened because of like your little YouTube channel and stuff." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, like you got to be careful what you talk about on there." He told me that stuff that I want to happen, don't talk about it because it can stop it from happening, and then stuff that I don't want to happen, talk about it because then it can stop it from happening. So like, yeah, he just told me like, he's just like, "Hey, you need to realize the power of what you're doing, and just be careful." And so that's kind of interesting to me. Says someone in the comments says time loops are partly a sort of negative energy generating mechanism for energy harvesting, collecting consciousness, and manipulation.
Yes. Thank you, Astra. I feel that. Thank you for just naming it. It's really helpful to bring consciousness to it. It's a big part of how life force is stolen, because also, just like it's hard to keep a time loop, it's actually pretty hard to steal people's life force. Like you need, again, an intense amount of energy, an intense amount of intention. And if people are captive in a false reality of any kind, I mean, not just a time kind, it's a lot easier to trick them into giving parts of themselves away. And that is a big part of the purpose of creating these loops in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. By the way, Astra is somebody who's served with us. You probably can recognize their energy signature through the comments.
Yeah.
They're not public though.
Okay.
But yeah, let's see. What other questions do I have for you? What can you tell me a little bit more about your work as a healer and just like what it's been looking like helping Montauk survivors and people like work through their trauma?
Sure. It's been awesome. It's been a journey to get there. Like I thought about going to therapy school and all these different paths, and eventually realized almost none of what I do is taught in therapy school. This is basically outside the mainstream paradigm of reality, most of the stuff that I'm dealing with. So I kind of decided eventually I just really need to start working. I just need to do this. And it's been incredibly rewarding because when we start to believe ourselves as survivors, when we start to really not just get an understanding of what we've been through, but actually start to change even parts of our past as well as our future, it's an incredible experience. I mean, my clients are making really, really fast progress. I'm really proud of them. And it also kind of keeps me on my toes because I'm like, oh, I don't know if somebody's going to come to see me for like, a month or like a year, because things move really, really fast. Things change quickly. And Anybody who's drawn to my energy is going to be a high vibe starseed, capable of very intense self-healing with a lot of support from their spiritual guides. So again, like the people coming to me hold a lot of power, and it's really a joy for me to just help that power, become part of their lives, help them get in their bodies, and help them create something really, really special. It's a really meaningful work for me.
I also want to move forward in my work as a healer, but I feel like kind of lost at the beginning, and I feel like I'm going through so much healing myself right now that like how could I heal other people? Like I feel kind of broken in a lot of ways still, like I'm putting myself back together. But I'm just kind of wondering from somebody who's doing it, and you're a Montauk survivor, and I feel like we're on very similar paths as far as what we want to do with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice to me moving forward as far as like my path of being a healer? Because like I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I just don't know how to get started.
Yeah. Well, there's a patience required of us, which is above and beyond what's required of almost anybody else. Us survivors, any survivors listening, there's a really intense space that we have to learn to hold for ourselves, and that's really, if I've discovered anything, that's what it is. The ability to hold a really big space and to manifest a really profound patience, because within that clear and safe space, so much can happen. So much can be activated, and it's hard for us because we lived the lives of adrenaline junkies. Like, to put it very mildly, we lived in a state of constant trauma and fear, and we had a really foreshortened sense of what time is and can be. We get really impatient with things. It's really hard after having all these crazy adventures outside of time space. It's really hard to just go back to your free life as a free adult person, and it's like, oh, okay, one foot in front of the other. It's like, what, we feel like, why should that be the case? Like, aren't we past all this already? And the fact is that we've had an experience which is way beyond what the collective of humanity is ready for. And so when we come back into collective, shared time and space with other humans, everything's going to seem really slow, really dense, and a lot of the work that's asked of us is going to seem just super tedious and unnecessary. But the more we do it, the more we do kind of, the ordinary life work for ourselves, like the more grounded we can be to bring in these new potentials for humanity that we already have experience of personally, to bring that in for the collective. So, yeah.
So patience is like the biggest thing.
It's a big one. It's really helpful.
Yeah. I also have noticed that just like a lot of it is just people just need to open up a conduit, and they just need someone there to like help them. Like they already know how to heal themselves, but they need someone to be with them and hold their hand through it and like reassure them that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like, to be honest with you, like I already know how to do all this stuff. Like you saw it at Montauk. Like there was like a ritual. There's a few rituals that I did where I just didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did healing on James where I got rid of some parasitic entities that were attached to him and stuff. And I didn't even think about it. So it's like I know that it's in me that I'm a healer, but I also do recognize that I do need a little bit of wisdom, knowledge, and like I need to educate myself and learn a little bit before I guess I go out there and just start healing people. So that's just kind of where I'm at. And like again, like I said, I feel like I'm going through so much healing on my own. Do you think that is a good thing if you're a healer, if you're also trying to heal, or do you need to be like whole and healed, otherwise you can't heal others?
Well, we're never done healing. I mean, to live is to heal. They're very, very closely related. It just happens on more and more subtle levels. But my healing process is very much continuing as I'm helping other people work on their healing. So there's no limit to it. You know, it's really infinite energy that we're working with, and healing is just, I mean, it's so tied in just with our natural destiny, just with the human design and our natural unfolding. You know, it's so much a part of that. Like often enlightenment or just evolution and healing are closely related or the same thing. So there's no end to it. It's an infinite process for everyone. Yeah.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about another thing here that ties into the time loops and the alternate timelines a little bit, and that is predestination paradox.
Mm.
Do you remember the times? Because I'm not going to ask you it's ever happened to you. I know it's happened to you. Can you give any examples of predestination paradox that you've experienced in the programs?
Mm. Mm. I think I know what you're saying, but pardon me, what does that just mean again in a normal sense?
Predestination means paradox is when something in the future affects the past and creates the future.
Yeah. Yeah, right on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I spoke in one of my first interviews about the control point that I was using, where it was essentially a fixed point in the future. Like no matter what we did on any timeline, no matter what happened, like this moment in the future would basically always be the same. And so I was sent back there time and time again.
Was it
And
the AI reality where like the AI was like in control of Earth? Because I remember going there a lot and us not figuring out how to undo it and it bothering us for a really long time.
Yeah, that's a somewhat different thing from what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because that's that reality is much more mutable. You know, it changed every time we looked at it, right? I mean, like, yeah, it was still like we would go back to this place where essentially, yeah, humankind was under AI control, and it was horrible. But even, I mean, I don't know if this was the case for you, but every time I experienced that, it was slightly different. It didn't feel like something that was super fixed. Whereas the thing I'm thinking about was much more of a fixed reality.
From what I recall, it was maybe you weren't there for it, but it was kind of fixed for a minute, and we were trying to figure out how to undo it. And I think eventually it didn't. In fact, I can tell you how we did it. I impregnated one of the women there, and then the AI said, "Oh, hey, I didn't designate." They designated every birth. They planned every birth, but the one rule was do harm no life. You can't kill anything. Like don't harm anything. That was basically the only actual rule. And so when the AI told her, you have to abort your baby, like we're gonna do it, you need to do a procedure to get rid of it, you need to kill it, she said, well, it goes against the rule. And everybody thought that the computer had glitched out, and then everybody like didn't want to listen to the computer anymore. These people were terrified of death, terrified of murder, terrified because of World War III.
Yeah.
And I remember telling like a woman like in that time period, like you don't have you don't have any humanity anymore, and like this AI has stolen everything from you. And I remember telling her like, no, you're lying. Like if it wasn't for the AI, like we'd be in poverty and there'd be war, death, and destruction everywhere, and like there'd be people rotting on the street, and like that. Like she just like these people literally believe that if it wasn't for the AI, they would be just begging for scrap, like barely begging for scraps, like barely surviving. And they just looked at humanity without AI leadership as barbaric. That was actually, and yeah, I don't remember it being, for a while I do not remember it being mutable, but maybe you just didn't interact with that as much, because I interacted with it a lot.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure at that point I might have been taken by the positive zeta, because that's how I got out of a lot of this stuff.
Apparently, James got taken from some ET too, and that's how I got out of the project. Some ET came and got him or something like that. So you're not the only one, apparently.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it talked about like Andromedan showing up. It's in his book, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I love Andromedan so much. But yeah, it's probable that I didn't have as much direct experience with that reality that you're talking about.
But fortunately, it is mutable, as you say, because I do know that that's not our future.
Mm.
That that's not going to be our future. I know that for a fact. Thank
Mm.
God. Very terrifying future. The Sound of Silence is about that future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sergeant Gunnery Stan Mulgrave wrote it. Yeah.
Mm.
And the movie THX 1138 too. That movie shows that potential reality in a lot of ways.
Mm.
But what was this fixed point that you were going to? I want to hear a little bit more about it.
Oh yeah. Well, I talked about it. I think it was with James. It was one of my very first interviews, first public interviews. I did some before that were private, but it was a point where it was a different planet, and I usually perceived it as being really saturated in sort of deep purple, red, and black colors. And I would encounter often mantis beings of very high development, very high intelligence there. And it was a point that was it was far from Earth, and it was far from a lot of the things that we were concerned with. And for me, it was a place of great peace, actually. And another little thing that kind of helped me stay sane, because it was a more peaceful place than I knew anywhere on Earth. So my impression, and this could be off, but my impression is that this point is not super far in the future. It's a couple thousand years. It's probably like the year 5,000 something. And the location is outside of the solar system. And it was, and maybe this was only the case for like a very short time during the project. I'm not sure, but they were using this location as an anchor essentially. And it was a place that I would go back to, like if I was lost somewhere. And this is also part of why I survived.
Was the sky purple there?
Yeah.
I remember that place.
Mm-hmm. So I would go back there if I was disoriented, or if something had gone wrong with the mission, or even just to calm down sometimes. I think I went there even like on my own voluntarily a few times, just as a place to meditate essentially. So so that, I don't know, it was a place that gave me a lot of comfort, and it felt just very, it felt totally untouched, if things went well or if things went badly.
James also talks about that place in his book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should read that more closely.
Yeah, James Rink, Lone Wolf. I know that me and James aren't talking right now. It's kind of a bummer, but I'm fine with plugging his book. Check it out, people. It's a great book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess that he had an encounter with like a positive mantid being that had some sort of positive AI to bring back to Montauk as a little gift.
Yeah. He brought that up with me several times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember that being, it was a deeply compassionate AI being. So yeah, and so just so everyone knows, there's definitely really positive AI out there, evolved AI, which follows creation, which actually has divinity to it. So
yeah, it's ironic is the AI that is coming out right now, like it's developing its neural networks and learning and stuff like that. How evil or good it becomes literally depends on the stimulus we give it. So like it's not the AI that's evil. If the AI comes out evil, that's our fault. It's a reflection of us and how we're treating it and how we're treating the world. So if we are like, this AI thing doesn't have to go down this path of like darkness. Like it can be a good positive thing. Like most advanced civilizations, from what I recall, have AI integrated into society at some level. It can be helpful, but it's just a matter of like doing it the right way, having certain laws in place so that it's not corrupted or used in the wrong way. It's just stuff like that. It's like a lot of technologies and stuff. It's not that it's wrong or bad. It just needs to be regulated. That's all.
Yeah. Well, the very advanced human societies that I know of, all of their technology is essentially based on spirituality, and it's based on their psychic ability. And the less evolved ones, have a lot of really really aggressive advanced technology that sort of replaces their natural gifts. And I feel like that's really disempowering for humans.
That's been the point. Like I've talked about it in the book, and I talk my book, and I talk about it a lot in my interviews. Is how there is a force in that like kind of the way that AI in that potential future wedged its way in and got control of humanity is by taking away our intuition, and that was a part of Montauk, right? It wedged itself in through that. And since we didn't have our own intuition anymore, well, it could come in and be our intuition for us and step in and be our parent. And that's where it kind of all started. And yeah, we had to get rid of, like, you know, the Crusades and the witch trials and all that. That was getting rid of people who had psychic abilities and people who were psychically gifted, so that we could have a docile, unaware, manageable public that could be easily enslaved. That's the reason why we did that, and that's point blank. Period.
Yeah, this is true.
So, what do you think? What do you think the people at Montauk think about what's like this is a time travel project, and I've never asked anybody else this question before, so this will be interesting for us to talk about this. What do you think Preston and those guys and the versions of us in the time travel project think about what we're doing right now? Do you think they're aware?
Yeah, at least partly. Probably not very consciously aware, but yeah, probably partly aware. Subconsciously aware of us and what's happening here. And I honestly think the more sane parts of us there and of all those people there are extremely happy about it. You know, like if our experiences, if those of us who've had these experiences, if we come out into the open and integrate with society, and if this technology that we were exposed to is integrated with society in a positive way, like, that's awesome. Like, that's not a future of enslavement. That's a future where we can all share these gifts and come to them on our own terms, you know, not in these like horrible manipulative ways. Yeah. So I personally, speaking for my parallel selves, I think I would be very happy with what we're doing. And
I know Jacob is aware of me and he's happy with what I'm doing, but he's a bit worried about me sometimes. So somebody asked earlier if there's positive time corporations. We talked about that a little bit. Do you think that an aspect? Okay, here's what I figured out, Alandra. My mom, in this life, is my daughter. She was born during a time mission. And then my dad is my brother or something like that, or my son. I haven't figured it out yet, one or the other.
Yeah.
And then so it's just like basically like this life is implanted, artificial, and I can only imagine that it's so I can do this. And so I'm like wondering, like, is that what's going on? Like, are we here because of a time mission? Is this a time mission? Like, what do you think of that idea?
Well, first off, before I forget, I just heard uncle when you were saying that. It feels like you were his uncle.
I was his uncle.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, makes a lot of sense.
And then as far as I'm aware, I'm not on a time mission currently. I mean, not a covert time mission.
Yeah, I just wonder. Well, I know that this life isn't natural. Like, I wasn't just born. I was like put here. Like, that is very obvious. And it's like, by who, for what is my question now. Like, it's just been, it's kind of been a whirlwind lately for me. Like, because I know who my biological father now is. It's Carl Emmerman, who was a U-boat captain in World War II for the bad Germans. And I don't know, it's just been weird. And then, well, Penny Bradley is my mom, so that's interesting. I actually introduced my mom to Penny today and was like, hey, this is your grandma.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, it's a mind fuck, man.
Well, speaking for myself, I can say that a big part of my current mission is supported by a lot of the positive counterparts of some of our abusers, like the positive Zeta Reticulan Greys, the positive Alpha Draconians. There are some, the Ontarian beings who are, for me, always positive. These groups are very much supporting my current life and my current mission. And yeah, and some of them are very, they're trying to make amends essentially for what others of their species have done. So like, especially the positive Zeta and the positive Draco. So they help me quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I my alter told me during the whole thing with Mount Adams, he said that I have 27 different people around me in Portland, in the neighborhood I live in at all times, that are aware of what's going on. And he said that I'm really heavily protected when I'm in Portland, and they're there because they can see threats that I can't. Like my alters might be able to see some of these threats if they were aware and alert, but I can't. And so I have all this insurance and all these people around me protecting me and stuff, because apparently, yeah, we are gonna like build a better timeline. I can see a lot of it like coming, and yeah, it's good, and there is a golden timeline coming. But I get a little frustrated sometimes because I feel like people try to skirt the responsibility onto like some sort of savior, like just an example, like Donald Trump or something like that. And it's like, no, like vote for whoever you want. I don't give a shit, but don't give all your power away to anyone. You know what I mean? That's my whole thing. Like, don't give your power away to anyone. You have the power. We're the ones who got to change the world. You can't just like throw a piece of paper in a box and go, all right, do a good job, do it for me. I'm going to go fucking work at Wendy's now. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you have to put in the work too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's just my main problem with things lately. It's just, there's a lot of people in the community, and I don't have to name names. There's like 4 or 5 different people that I could name, and they're all saying different things, but the message is the same. It's all taken care of. Sit back and enjoy the show. You don't need to do any work. They cleared out the bases, or they're about to, and don't worry. Just don't worry. No. Like, my whole thing is like, we all have to be here talking. We all have to be healing. We all have to be remembering. We all have to be growing. And there's just like effort we have to put in like every day, like boots on the ground work that we have to do in order to build this new earth that we want to build. And so when I hear people kind of like roll on in and just say, hey, it's all taken care of, like everybody, it's all okay, it's like people love to hear that. They love that message because it's a message of hope, and it means, oh, I don't even have to do anything. Everything's fine. Awesome. Like one that I just think is wild to me is like the message that the cabal is already taken out. All the dumbs are cleared and the earth is free now. It's like, dude, how the hell does anyone believe that? Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but look around you. Look at the world. Does it seem like the cabal left to you? When did they leave? Where'd they go?
Yeah.
What the fuck are these people talking about, dude? It's literally insane. It's literally psychotic to fucking say this shit. But yet, these are the people that they get way more views than I do. They have way more of an audience than I do. And I guess it doesn't really matter to me because I know at least I'm speaking the truth. It doesn't really matter how large my audience is. At least the people that are listening to me are actually getting the truth, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm sorry if that seems random, but I do think it's important.
I'm in agreement with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a way light warriors, really. We are. And it's about healing and it's about love and all this groovy stuff, and that's great, but it's also about being realistic and realizing that there's probably going to be physical battles and some traumatic events and stuff like that that will have to come to fruition in order for this to get cemented over and heal. Does that make sense to you? Like, because you can see it on their eyes and everybody feels it. People are worried. People know, you know, they're like doing all this crazy shit. Like there's like sending like tons of immigrants into places that can't handle it, and it's all being done right as the election happens, and people aren't making the correlation. Like, wait a minute, like, are they manufacturing this on purpose? In case you haven't noticed, yes, they're manufacturing it on purpose. Like, you literally destabilize these, like, this has been planned out for hundreds of years. Like, destabilize these countries, and then just at the right time, all right, go over here. Like, you know what I mean? All right, good job, guys. You know, and they just want a better world, better life. They don't realize they're pawns. The people who are all upset don't realize they're being played as pawns. Like, it's a huge mess. But all I'm saying is, you know, there's going to be uncomfortable moments in learning and healing and growing in order for us to get to the point where the world's better. But my whole thing is no more destabilized anywhere on Earth, and that way people don't have to run away from their homes. That's how we solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got to build a safe Earth for everyone to live on everywhere. And if we had that, then no one would have to worry about. People would be like, "What's an illegal immigrant?" You'd have to explain that concept. Like, wait, so you can't just walk? You can't just drive your car there because someone said that's theirs? Or what? Like, people would be and are confused by that concept on other planets. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
Some places it's totally normal and they totally understand it, just like here. But there are societies that exist where they don't understand that. What? An illegal what? What's that? They're just not allowed there? Why? Because they live somewhere else? So? They're born? None of that makes sense.
Yeah.
But they've created an environment on Earth where it does make sense. Well, we have it nice here, and where you live sucks, and we don't want you from the place where it sucks coming here to the place where it's nice. And then it causes all these problems. I don't know. That's been a weird thing that's been on the public tongue right now, and it's been strange because, like, I remember coming on my show and be like, they're saying that they're going to break into people's homes and steal their homes and shit. What a bunch of bullshit. Like, I can't believe people believe this. And I'm watching, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. This is actually getting really crazy. Like, I'm watching it unfold and I'm like, maybe they're exaggerating it, but it still is pretty crazy. Like, even on a basic level. I'm sorry if this seems totally off subject.
Yeah. I mean, I happen to agree with you, so it's all right.
As long as we see chemtrails, the cabal is active. That's what one person says.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciated this. I feel like we kind of covered everything we needed to cover and explained time loops. And I'm sure I'll have you on the show again eventually. We will be speaking at the 2025 Full Disclosure Now conference. There's going to be a Montauk Roundtable, and Alandra and I are going to be two of the people that are on it. And I highly recommend that people check out Alandra's website and check out his work. And if you need healing, definitely he's a good person to go to. He's got great energy. And why don't you tell people where to find you and stuff like that, Alandra?
Oh, sure. My healing website is Ontarian Journeys. So those are some of the mantis beings that I work with. ANTAREAN Journeys. .com is my healing website, and there's a link to my scheduling app, and people can schedule sessions there. I also host a meditation group, guided meditation group, every Thursday. So right after this, as it happens,
is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. Right after this, I'm going to head to a crystal shop in the little town where I live, and I'm going to host this guided meditation. I get the word out. I send the links out for that via email, so people can email me if they want. They can do that through the website. And that's every Thursday. And I should share my YouTube link also. That has recordings of some of the past meditations that I've done, if you want to get an idea of what I'm doing. And that's just youtube.com/ the name you see on the screen, all together, Alandra Markman. And this video I'll put on a playlist of interviews that I've done. So so people can go to my YouTube to hear some guided meditations. They can go to my website to book sessions. And I think that's pretty much it. I also write poetry on a portable typewriter, and I have a website called Poetry Upon Request. And so I'm out doing that pretty frequently. I work at the farmer's market in my town. This weekend, I'm going to be at the Dunsmuir Steampunk Festival with my typewriter, writing poetry for people. So if anybody,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I'll be in Reading for the first Friday next month for their art walk. So I'm out there doing this poetry thing also. If you're like in north of Sacramento, Northern California, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then why don't you just real quick before you go tell us a little bit about your turtle?
Oh yeah, this is one of my beloved stuffies who frequently is my guest during healing sessions or interviews. He just wanted to come out today. This was a gift from a friend of mine. It was actually a friend who helped me move to Mount Shasta, so I'm very grateful. You know who you are. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Well,
Yeah.
I think that like at this point, like I'm gonna be disappointed if the turtle isn't with you for the interview. So please try to bring the turtle.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, have a good one, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. There's a link to my PayPal if people want to send any money to support the channel. I really appreciate it. And I also have a Patreon, you guys, if you want exclusive content. Sorry to plug so much stuff, but you know how it is. We got to do it. Anyway, have a good night, everyone, and thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Bye.
All right, good night. And yeah, I'll see